Welcome to the Tactical Business Podcast. I'm your host, Wade Skalsky, and today we're talking with Anthony Pace of Freedom Hunters. Anthony, how are you doing today, sir?
Wade, I'm doing great. How about you?
I'm doing good. Do you go by Anthony, or do you go by Tony, or by Mr. Pace? What is your preferred method of being referred to?
Yeah, whatever pronouns you want to use, but Anthony works for me. Thank you.
Well, we are a biology assigned at birth podcast, so we'll just Anthony or Mr. Pace will be fine.
Sounds great.
Good, good. Well, I'm excited to talk to you today, actually, and we were talking a little bit off camera before we started, is that, I've never really interviewed anyone that's doing what you guys are doing. So, but before we kind of dig into that, how did you get into the space? I would say you're in the firearms space by the nature of kind of what you do. And how did you get into the space? Where did you, I'm assuming you didn't just come out of the womb shooting guns.
Well, pretty close. I know I was still in the womb when I was on a hunt with my mom and dad. So, so there you go. I guess from the beginning, I've been out there in the woods, but I've always enjoyed hunting and shooting. I've always had a deep respect for those that served. So I was able to combine those two uh, with the founding of Freedom Hunters and getting our veterans and their families out enjoying, what I did growing up and, what I did with friends and family. So, now with Freedom Hunters, I'm able to get, those that served out doing that same thing.
What part of the country did you grow up in? So, what kind of hunting and fishing were you doing?
Grew up in Colorado.
Okay.
So, you know, uh, trout and lakes and streams, hunting deer, elk, and antelope and upland game and, migratory birds, whatever, anything and everything. I'm not an expert at any one, but I enjoy them all.
I love Colorado. I taught horseback riding in Winter Park for a summer,
Oh, very
and
nice.
yeah, it was awesome. And you'd be in the mountains, and it would rain every day at 2 o'clock for like 10 minutes, and I almost just was gonna. Most people go to California, become ski bums, and then they stay up there. But I was the opposite. I was almost like I'm just going to stay in the mountains and just ride horses all the time. I love Colorado. It's an amazing place. And so you kind of grow up in Colorado. You're doing all this different type of hunting and fishing. Did you go into that profession or that vertical kind of as you started to go into the workforce, or did you do something else?
No, I actually went to college for filmmaking, so I thought I was going to be in the Christian filmmaking world, and doors just never opened up that direction. So yeah, this is where I ended up.
Nice. And then, but I mean, I hate to say this to you, but you don't look like you're 25 years old. You look slightly older than that. So, did you go right into the hunting business after the college, or what did you do for work after college?
No, a little bit of everything.
Okay.
My family had grocery stores, so managed a grocery store for a few years. I did some apartment management for them and video production and um, kind of a little bit of everything. Ended up in working as a counterman at Napa for a while. So
This
it's
no, and the
everything.
reason why I ask is because a lot of those, what I would say, like normal person jobs, right? Like working in counter Napa, or working in a hotel, or working in a grocery store, or whatever. Those lessons that you learn in those industries definitely, for the most part, from people I've talked to, help them in what they're doing now in the firearms industry. So do you find that to be the case, or is there some transferability from the customer service side, or anything like that?
Sure. Yeah, I think customer service in whatever industry you're in is hugely important. I've the creative side that I had, in filmmaking and video production, helps me as we put together information to, share what we're doing, whether it's fundraisers or about an event. I've got a pretty strict eye on the photos that come in and that we share. And some of them, there's not much you can do to, make them as perfect as you'd like. But I do see that, and again, everybody's background, helps form who they are as they move through life for sure.
Well, what I love about your story is that, you you wanted to do something creative in terms of, all right, I'm going to go into, the film industry, and I'm a creative person, and that's what I'm going to do. And okay, yeah, that didn't necessarily work out, but that creative mindset is what allowed you to take those two things that you love and literally make your own thing, right? Because no one really had put those two things together, at least that I have seen, and in the specific way that you have done that, so that your creative mind has made something special.
Yeah, I've always kind of been an outside the box thinker, and I like the volunteers that we've got are kind of under that same mindset, and it's great. I talked with one of them today, and Susan is just going gangbusters up in Michigan, and part of that is she has the mindset to think outside the box and create new partnerships and do things that again help us move the ball forward.
Well, and I think it's important to anyone listening to the podcast that wants to go into anything in tactical business or firearms, business, the two-way space, is that it doesn't have to just be, I'm going to open a gun store, right? Like, yes, that's great. Like, we need more brick and mortar gun stores, but literally, like, the space can hold any type of thing that you can think of, almost like what you're doing with, with Freedom Hunters. So let's talk a little bit about that. So walk me through exactly what does your organization do? How did it start? Like I know you said you had this idea of putting those two things together, but was there sort of like a inflection moment, or kind of walk me through that a little bit?
Yeah, so Freedom Hunters, I guess just to sum it up, we're a 501(c)(3). We're a military outreach program. So we take veterans hunting, shooting, fishing, and take them on events, all across the country, and we do international events as well. But part of the catalyst for me starting was had a conversation. Also worked in the outdoor industry, manufacturing DVDs and CDs, and actually clear back to the VHS days. So I had a lot of customers in the outdoor industry. So I had a dinner with one of the gentlemen that I was one of my clients, and he was talking about trying to do something for veterans. And basically came home from that conversation. It's like, well, why am I not doing something? So that night I pretty much Freedom Hunters is what came to mind, and that was 2004. We ended up taking our first veteran out in 2006, and we've been growing and humping as fast as we can. So far we've had over 15,000 veterans and their family members out on anything and everything from half-day fishing trips to African safaris to waterfowl and whatever else, and anything and everything in between.
Yeah, I mean, what a great 20 years. It's like over 20 years, right? You said 2004 is when you got the idea, and so right about
Yes, sir.
21 years, and like 15,000 people. That's a lot. That's for direct outreach. That's a lot of people, right? I'm so excited by just that concept of, you said, well, I have this idea, and now 20 years later, you've helped over 15,000 people. Um, how does someone, what is the vetting process for to selecting someone? Do they apply? Do you select them? Are people referred to you? So if you're a veteran and you're like, you want to go through this program or go through this process, how does that work?
Yeah, we have an online application, freedomhunters.org. There's an apply for an adventure button. It's a pretty simple application, basic contact information, basic military service. And, some people get more specific. The more specific you are on the application is always better. Tell us a little bit, what you've done in your past as far as military experience and in the outdoor space. And then that helps us kind of guide us into selecting that person. As adventures come up, we look through the applications, try to find guys logistically close to a specific event, but I don't have too many applicants from Namibia. So, we might have to dig a little deeper there. But, when we look through the applications, that's the toughest part, is trying to select the right person for that event. Um, Sometimes it's because of the person who offers the opportunity, whether it's an outfitter or a landowner or just a sportsman. hey, my dad served in the Marines, or I was a Marine. I would like to take a Marine out. And so, that'll help narrow it down. Are we looking for somebody who's combat wounded? Are we looking for somebody who is currently serving? Some of those things, the opportunities dictate who we select. But it's that's always a tough part when you've got, we've got over probably 25,000 names in our database.
Mm.
So how do you select from those people, who goes on the opportunity? Um, that's not always an easy task, but we try to be very, very selective on who gets to go.
Well, and I'm sure is that you want to you want to ensure that it's a good fit for both people, right? So it's a good fit for the veteran so that they benefit from it, but then also that for whoever's donating or whatever, that it's a good fit for them as well and meets those desires that you talked about. And that's got to be hard from 25,000 people. So um, how do you how do you look at it as the benefits, right? So do you look at it more as like a mental health benefit? Do you look at it more as sort of a transition benefit? Like, okay, well, we're going to help these people transition more back into civilian life, or all the above?
Yeah, the therapeutic value of the outings, whether it's a half day trip or a week long adventure, is really where the benefit is for the veterans. It's We've had story after story of veterans who've come back from an outing, and we may not hear for 2 or 3 years that, hey, that trip saved my life. I was at home with a pistol underneath my pillow, just ready to take my life on that day, and you called. Um, so stuff like that, stories like that, they're not unique. We hear them all across the country from veterans who are having a hard time, going through daily life, going through the walk. I mean, most of them, especially if they're, if they're wounded or injured, their whole life goal was to be in the military, to be outside, to be active, to be, part of the unit, and then to have that taken away from them, whether it's a, training accident or a combat injury, that it plays havoc on your mind, and the demons that you fight inside, on that are pretty tough. Physical wounds, are tough. If you're dealing with amputation or severe burns, you're going through medical procedures there. But a lot of times, um, the the internal wounds are the ones that are the most damaging.
Yeah, I never served, so I don't, I'm always very careful about how when I have commentary on things like that, but I do know men, right? And one thing about being a man is that one of the benefits of being a man is that we don't need like one event can really change a man's life, right? So, and what I mean by that is that, like my wife paid me a compliment like 3 years ago. That'll keep me good for 3 years, right? Like that's a joke, but it's almost true, right? Where if you have a big trip or you have a big event or you have one big thing, like that will feed your fire for a long time as a man. At least that's been my experience, and that's been the experience I've seen of other people. And I can see how what you do can really, someone can really hold on to that in a dark time. And I think that's amazing. I mean, and anecdotally, that seems to be what you're telling me is happening.
Yeah, and it's most of the events that we have, there are more than one veteran on them. So the camaraderie, and somebody could be at one point in their walk, and another person not quite be there, so that the buddy system of helping each other through those hard times. And it's again part of what they learned in the military. It's a team effort. you know you're only as weak as your weakest link. So help your buddy get to that point of you know being better in his walk, and being better prepared. And whether it's simple tips of, hey, here's what I did through the VA, or here's what program helped me, or if it's just, here's my phone number, call me, and I'll help you through. So
Yeah, yeah, and you never know. And I don't know if you've had, I mean, I'm sure you've had this experience. I mean, I know you have, but you never know what small thing that you do for someone. will change their whole life, right? It may not even, like you said, it may not even be the big, we're going on the trip, we're going to go on this hunt, we're going to bag this elk or whatever. But I mean, it may be that moment over a, coffee while you're waiting to go out, where two guys are talking, and the guy just realizes, oh, I'm not the only person experiencing this. And that's the moment, right? It's not the,
Yeah.
and that's the thing about hunting that I think that people don't understand about hunting is that very rarely is it about harvesting the animal. It's everything that leads up to that. It's the entire experience, and the fact that you're able to capture that and then add that in with the outreach is amazing. Now, how have you explored, or do you have partnerships? I think I saw Benelli was on your website. So walk me through. Let's talk a little bit about how, like, do you have partnerships? How do you get those partnerships? Like, how do those come about? And what does that look like?
Yeah, Benelli is one of our biggest sponsors. They've helped us now for we're going on 12 years now. September 26th, we'll have our Benelli Invitational. They put on a sporting clays event for us out in Maryland. This year, it'll have raised over $1 million over that 11 years. So, it's huge. Product sponsors for fundraisers that we've got, and opportunities. We'll have, someone in the outdoor industry that says, hey, we're doing a press, outing, can you send a veteran along with us? So it's, there are so many different ways that people in the outdoor industry can come on board and help us. Just email us, give us ideas. Again, I'm an idea guy, so give me a little bit and I can expand on that if necessary.
I have that sickness as well. I have that weakness. And so did you, when you started this in 2004 or whatever it was, in your mind, did you ever think that you'd have a company like Benelli sponsoring you? Like, was that part of your vision? I mean, that's a big boy sponsor.
Yeah, yeah. I've always dreamed big. So,
Cool.
I'm waiting for that call from Elon Musk to name, one of the rockets Freedom Hunters and, that kind of stuff. So it's coming.
Yeah, well, if you don't visualize it, and you don't have space for something to happen, it never will, right? It doesn't mean that it will happen, but it definitely won't happen if you don't create space for it in your life, for sure. Um,
Yeah.
what is so you guys have been cranking along for 20 years. Now, are you based out of Colorado then, or do you have chapters in different parts of the country? Are you looking to expand? What does that look like?
Yeah, I'm in Colorado. I've got volunteers kind of spread out across the country, kind of a loose chapter system. I've got regional directors that kind of focus on their area, but I've got regional directors in Ohio that plan events in Florida. So it's really not nobody has or assigned space that they can't walk out of. But it's I mean new volunteers offering opportunities anywhere across the country are welcome.
And how do you determine the cadence of your events, right? Because I'm sure, given you have 25,000 veterans, you could do something every day for every year. You know what I mean? So you have the demand for that. So how do you determine the cadence so that you keep the quality of the events high, that you don't burn out? Like, how is that more art than science, or do you have a set schedule, or how does that work?
Yeah, we just wing it. No. So no, it really the events themselves kind of dictate what we can handle. We've had opportunities that have been presented to us, with a week's notice. Say, hey, I need, we're going to do this, and I need a veteran or a couple veterans. Can you facilitate it? And I guess we're kind of like an eHarmony. You tell us the opportunity, and we'll fit the vet into that opportunity.
So,
So we like to have a little bit more planning time than that, but we're able to move on a short notice for sure.
well, and okay, so and you bring up kind of as a joke eHarmony, right? But I mean, one of the big things in business, be it if it's you're running a foundation kind of like what you're doing, or if it's a more traditional business, is the people part of it, right? And so what are some of the guidelines that you use when evaluating um, an opportunity with a veteran and that fit, right? So I know that you had said, well, that someone may want a Marine or whatever, but um, and I know that you said that when people they're going to give you that information. Is there something that you look for specifically for a veteran that makes them a good fit, or is it just kind of like it will just kind of jump out at you when you're looking at the opportunity?
Yeah, I think it sort of jumps out at you, and we've been doing it for so long. Again, you try to find, the perfect vet. Not, I don't know that we ever do, but when you get the stories come back that this saved my life, or changed my life, spurred me on to do whatever. We had a veteran that was on a waterfowl hunt, was real hesitant about going, had severe PTSD, and was worried about even firing his firearm. He hadn't shot since he was in the service, and so it was like, hey, get out in the pond, in the pit, and if you don't ever pull a trigger, you don't need to. Just be there, hear the whistling wings of the ducks come in, enjoy the sunrise, and before the trip was over, he was on his way home, telling his wife, "Hey, I need to get a dog. I need to get, I need to buy a shotgun, waders, and all this stuff." So again, you just hope you select that correct one. I I feel like a lot of the stuff we do is divinely driven. So, hopefully, again, we select that right person for the right event.
I 100% believe that as well. I mean, I think we're all in God's hands, and if we put ourselves, with that mindset, the things seem to work themselves out properly. You know what I mean? And so if everyone has
Absolutely.
that mindset, um, it's funny you bring up duck hunting because that's one of the when I was talking about before about it's like I'm not even particularly a big fan of duck in terms of eating it, but the the that one of my favorite things ever, one of my favorite hunting trips ever was a duck hunting trip where it was just getting up at 3 in the morning and you don't mind that you don't mind that it's cold, you don't mind that the water's cold, you know what I mean? It's just is that whole experience and that's what I really wish that people can understand about hunting, is that and the conservation aspect of it is what makes it so awesome. And if you can get people to understand that it's that 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 part of it, it's huge for outreach. Now, do you guys have that type of outreach where you're also on the veteran side, but also on the conservation side as well? Do you touch on that at all?
A little bit. Yeah, we've actually done some stuff with the US Fish and Wildlife Service where it hasn't even been a hunting or fishing trip. We did some tree planting along with one of the refuges. We've got a memorandum of understanding with Fish and Wildlife, to have some access to wildlife refuges and hatcheries around the country. And we've put the word out, if you've got a project where you need to fix a trail, or plant trees, or do something physical labor wise, let us know, and then that way we can get out there. And I, I think too, giving the veterans an opportunity to volunteer and do something positive, is a good healing tool as well. So anyway, we try to involve that. One of the groups that came on the tree planting thing was, from one of the aircraft carriers. So I kept teasing the guys from Fish and Wildlife Service. Said, "Hey, you called in some help. I called in an aircraft carrier. What do you need next? You know, the whole Marines, or what? We'll get somebody out there to help you."
Yeah, I live in Virginia Beach, and so we drive by the tunnel in Norfolk, and I can get some aircraft carriers for you if you need them. At least I know where they are. So,
Yep.
um, now you mentioned something, and this is so cool because I think this is important for people to understand sort of these unintended consequences of right time, right place, right attitude. Is that so? You have so I was a lawyer in a former life, right? So, I vaguely know what a memorandum of understanding is, but walk me through what that is because that is one of those things where you don't really plan for that as much. Is that something like that kind of just happens? And then walk me through what that is because that's really cool.
Yeah. On this particular thing, it's an opportunity, for the higher ups in Fish and Wildlife Services to get out to the individual, refuges and hatcheries, an understanding that Fish and Wildlife Service would like to do projects with veterans and veteran organizations to get to expose the refuge or the hatchery, to the general public, and get some of the good public persona going on one way or the other. So that was kind of the main gist of that is, um, that the hatcheries and the refuges um, have permission to work with us, basically.
Yeah, and that's I mean, and so like look, like I think in the 2A space, the government can get kind of a bad name, obviously, because there's a lot of public policy around 2A and around, firearm regulation and all that. But one thing that the government does do occasionally well, and some of the people that work for it are awesome, is Fish and Wildlife and rangers. Like some of them are really, really good, and they really care about the land, and they really care about conservation. And so that's and I think the more positive interactions that we can have with, Fish and Game, or on a state level or a federal level, that's nothing but good for the space.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's the refuge that we planted trees on. I don't think there's hunting or fishing opportunities there, and maybe there are some fishing opportunities. But again, exposing that manager to that particular refuge and to the workers on the place, to veterans, to outdoorsmen, to hunters and fishermen, I think is a good thing for everybody involved.
Now, you had talked earlier about, you went on a safari to Africa. Like, how did that happen? Does it still happen? Like, walk me through that. That sounds awesome.
Yeah, well, we've part of what we do in trying to network to find new opportunities is we'll go to, Dallas Safari Club to their convention, or Mule Deer Convention, Turkey. Pretty much, we try to hit all the major outdoor shows and network with the outfitters and landowners and manufacturers. So we met up with a outfitter out in Namibia. I don't know, it's been several years back, and he basically, the deal we have with him, he's donated safaris to the guys. And we've bought some as well to supplement. So, a few years ago, it's been a couple of years now since we sent somebody over there, but sent two Marines. They served together. Um, Sent them over there. We paid for one safari. The outfitter supplied it. We bought airfare and that to get the veterans over there. And it was pretty simple safari. They had you know 4, 5, 6 animals in that package, and then they the hard thing about Africa is once you get over there and you start seeing all the different animals, they decided, oh well, I think maybe I'll take one of those. So it's yeah, but it was a pretty special trip for the two of them.
Yeah, that is some outside the box thinking as well. I mean, that's just you don't seem to be limited in sort of your ideas at all. I mean, that's awesome. What's the plan for going forward, right? So you've been going for 20 years. Is it just more of the same? You're like, hey, we got a formula. We're going to keep working this formula. Or is there sort of what's the next phase look like? Is it different, the same?
Yeah, I think more of the same. Continuing to build opportunities all across the country. There's regions I'd like to expand a little bit more. We do a little bit up in the Northwest. I'd like to do more there. The Virginia Beach area where you're talking, we've got something going on in that area. Shoot, probably 2 or 3 events, every month, if not more. So I'd like to see, again, more expand on some of those pockets that we don't have a full reach in.
Yeah, I mean, it gives it's a big world, right? And so and there's a lot of opportunities everywhere, and especially in the United States. Um, how do so what so if you would list like the top 3 ways that your organization could be assisted, how can someone if they hear this podcast and you're like, yeah, man, I want to get involved. Like, what are some of like 3 ways that people can help you?
I guess one, if you've got an opportunity where we can insert a vet into an event that you already have, if you've got a boat and you want to go fishing next week, and I've got room on the boat, let us know. We'll get a vet or two to go out fishing with you. If you're a manufacturer and you've got product that's sitting in the warehouse that's outdated and no longer in circulation, and you need a place to get rid of it, let us know. We've got that with several manufacturers. It'll send us a pallet of Streamlight just sent us a pallet of flashlights, so we can donate those to the veterans for the events, use them in fundraisers. We basically it's limitless what we can do there. If a veteran would like to come on board, sign up. We'd love to have you, and volunteers. Always good to have great volunteers come on board. And again, we do a little vetting there to make sure it's a good fit for both of us. But again, it's people who are willing to work hard and get out there and that are self motivators. That's key.
What is the website again?
freedomhunters.org.
And then if people want to reach out to you directly, is there an email that they can contact you on?
Yeah, info@freedomhunters.org. That's probably the best way.
Perfect. And then do you have any big events coming up? Like what is the next, what are we just hitting summer now? We're in June, right? So what does the summer look like? Maybe into the fall? Do you have any kind of cool things coming up?
Yeah, well, we just finished our big bear hunt in British Columbia. So we had eight veterans up there hunting bears, all successful. We've got a fishing spin rod casting event up here in Colorado, the 23rd. We've got fundraisers kind of all over the country. I've got everything from like a UTV event to golf, sporting clays. And we've, like I say, weekly, we've got outings going on. We had 3 fishing trips in the Chesapeake Bay this last week, and it's kind of nonstop all the time.
That's amazing. So I've really enjoyed talking to you today. We're kind of coming up on our time. Are you on socials? Are you guys on Twitter or Facebook or?
No, Facebook and Instagram.
So you got to get on X/Twitter. I'm gonna gun Twitter is actually growing pretty fast, so I'm gonna.
Oh, very good.
I'm gonna haze you continually about getting on X to do that. So as I think there's a lot of people that could benefit from what you guys do.
Yeah, we've got an account. I just don't use it very well.
Well, now that Elon bought it, like gun, they actually changed the emoji so there's you can actually have a real gun, not a fake gun. So it's like starting to become more gun friendly. So I think there's an untapped opportunity there for the 2A space. But well, listen, Anthony, I've really enjoyed talking to you today. I'd love to have you on the show again in, let's say, 6 months and just kind of see what you guys are up to, because like I said, it's like you have a very unique organization. You're doing amazing work. And if there's any way that we can help you on the show, please let me know.
Yeah, we'd love to. And with you being there in Virginia Beach area, I'd love to get you out with us and watch the Kool-Aid being made right in front of your face.
Oh, we'll do in the field, 100%. We'll do an in the field podcast about it and take some video. It'd be awesome. So we'll stay on after I stop the recording, but I really enjoyed talking to you today. And thank you so much, Anthony, for coming on.
Thanks for having me, Wade. Appreciate it very much.